is. The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window, or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison.
I bring to you the return of Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Hey guys, we're back for another episode of The Return of Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
I'm Mrs. Smith.
I'm Mr. Smith. Last
Sure.
time I checked, I think so. Yeah, unless you replaced me. But today we have a fantastic guest with us, Geraldine
Yes.
Orozco, and we have been so looking forward to having her on the show.
Definitely. She, like myself, is a hybrid mother. She was just recently in Extraordinary, the Seeding movie by John Sumple. And we're going to show you a really quick clip, and then we'll be right back with Geraldine.
The more that we actually learn about the world we're in, the greater the mysteries.
One in 50 American adults had experiences that could point to abduction.
It's extremely brave for someone to make their story public in this arena.
We'd look away and the ship would light up, and the next thing is just, boom, it's gone.
Men and women have been taken for purposes of reproduction and hybridization.
I was abducted. I wake up and there's such a bright light. They would tell me to look in their eyes.
They're controlling your thoughts.
Inserting this gigantic tube inside of my body, it's painful. I'm now looking who this man is. He is inside of me. It's a screen image of the reptilian. They began the insemination process.
A new embryo is created, and that little hybridized embryo already formed is implanted in the womb, and she will gestate.
They always want the children fetuses.
I would go in for my appointment and there would just be no baby.
With a very long needle through the belly button, we go into the uterus and they would find the fetus.
It holds on to the fetus and pulls out.
And then they bring this little girl in the room.
And he said that she's yours.
This beautiful eyes, this face, and I see myself in the child.
She was emanating her feelings. I was shocked.
It was nobody's right to impregnate me and use me as a laboratory rat.
I went from 210 pounds to 115 pounds.
These beings that are doing the abducting don't have the same morality as we do.
They don't think what they're doing is wrong.
Hearing other people's accounts will make you go, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone.
Who are we serving? We need to ask those questions.
Look, human beings taken animals in the wild and bred them. Can we be bred into something different? The answer is absolutely, of course we can.
Educate yourself, be open-minded.
Don't be dismissive.
People have been taken.
You can't ignore this anymore.
Make up your own mind. Don't let anyone ever tell you how you think.
Sorry guys, not all ETs are good.
No, not all ETs are good. It was a really powerful clip, and the first time I watched that, I got goosebumps everywhere. I mean, I still do every time I watch it, but it was something that I think I needed to see back when I saw it, because for the longest time, I thought I was the only one that had been shown their own hybrid baby. And I thought I was nuts. It wasn't until after I met Geraldine and after I met Melinda that I was like, oh, okay. They both have very similar stories to mine. I'm not crazy, because this was back in 1997 when it happened to me. And I didn't know anybody on the East Coast that had a similar story. And everybody that I spoke to back then about aliens or whatever, if it wasn't in our little circle at the Eyes of Learning,
right,
I got that look. Oh, yeah. Okay. Linda, get your tinfoil hat on again. Do you want to introduce our guest?
Yes, I would love to. We've been looking forward to having Geraldine on the show, and I'm so glad we got to play that clip too.
Yeah, that clip is...
Geraldine is an intuitive DNA reprogrammer and ascension coach. And in 2013, she experienced a vivid abduction with her bedroom window, where she recounts being taken on board a ship and meeting tall grays that introduce her to her 8 hybrid children, 8 of them. The next morning, she encounters a hypersensitivity to human electromagnetic field. This discovery initiates a journey to find the truth about what happened. In her first hypnotherapy in June 2017, it resulted in the discovery of repeated abductions originating in her childhood. Okay. She recounts her abductions through her regressions, in which she brings forth information regarding the universe and ancient DNA alterations here on planet Earth that operate to control the population through hidden government manipulations. But her journey does not end there. She underwent 4 additional regression sessions throughout the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2018. During these sessions, she traveled deep into each abduction and the history of the universe in order to understand the reason behind the hybridization program here, both on and off Earth, as well as how they operate the program among humans. Geraldine goes deep into understanding the purpose of ascension with the utilization of human technology and DNA information for their ongoing harvest of energy within the intelligent universe. So, without further ado, Geraldine, welcome aboard.
Yes, thank you.
Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hold on, you're muted for some reason.
Oh, yeah, make sure you're not muted.
I don't know if she did it.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Hi, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Linda and Richard.
Thank you.
It's so great. Yeah, so, well, a little bit about myself. You heard a little bit, but basically, I'm founder of Bay Area Meditation, and I have been in this field teaching meditation, consciousness, spirituality for over about 10, 11, 12 years. And but my life completely changed in 2013 when I had this experience. And it was absolutely conscious, vivid experience where I saw them, felt them. And more importantly, the very next day, as a result of that experience, I had these new psychic abilities that caused me to, I mean, first of all, it felt like being hit by a truck. Second of all, I couldn't leave my house for a couple months because I was so sensitive to people around me. And so for me, that was like my proof of what had happened that day. And it was just completely life-changing. Yeah. So I guess since then, it's been an incredible journey of awakening and transformation. In 2017, I had my first hypnosis regression with a hypnotherapist, and I was able to recover a lot of the memories of events and experiences, contact experiences that I had had since childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's when the picture of my life kind of started being put together and things became more real, things started to set in. But the interesting thing about this experience is that during those regressions, I've also, I guess, unlocked or downloaded, you could say, information because my question, I had been very heavily working on the deconstruction of my perception in my daily life, my emotional life, really healing any kind of traumas in myself or any kind of pain and suffering. And so that really led me down a road of searching for truth and what was truth, you know. So coming across this kind of experience where if you talk to me, you know, 5 years ago, you talked to me about aliens, I mean, I would give you the same look. I wouldn't be able to connect that, you know. I wouldn't be able to really be able to integrate all the things that I have come across through this experience, you know. So in that regression, I downloaded information about how and why these kinds of genetic modifications and hybridization is being done on planet Earth. And it really takes you down a whole other rabbit hole that has to do with the connection between consciousness, spirituality, and our life force, our existence here on this planet. And that's really where my focus is at.
Your first introduction to your children back in, what was it, 13?
Yeah.
I know that the room that I was in, and I've heard since then, a lot of other people have had an experience in a very similar room. It was a very white, very sterile, round room. No visible doors on walls or anything. Almost like a haze was in the room. Like it wasn't a clear room with the lights on like we're in now. And then the wall opened up. There was a door all of a sudden. And that's when I saw one of the pictures on the movie, The Seeding, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly how they all walked in with me. There were 3 beings. One was shorter. The taller one was holding my baby, and they all walked towards me. The shorter one was actually one that I call an elder from when I was a child. They have a symbol on their chest, their lapel, whatever you want to call it. But I instinctively knew that was my child. I heard it in my head, this is your baby girl, or this is your child, whatever they said. It was 20-something years ago. But I had a full conversation with her in my head, even though she was, it was 97. She was under a year old, but she looked older and more knowing than my daughter, who was born at the same time. She's the twin of the one that I still have here on Earth.
It's unbelievable, Linda. Richard,
I mean, crazy.
It really is. And, you know, this is the kind of story that I hear on a daily basis from people that connect with me now, due to this film, which is really groundbreaking. The fact that, you know, people were able to actually put together such a elegant and well done film documentary that talks about these experiences that are really happening to women and men around the world. And we're not just talking about a few of us, we're talking about thousands of people really that have these experiences. And of course, because it's such a fringe topic, it's such a difficult thing to communicate and even vocalize. You know,
it is.
How do you tell people that you have had an experience where you feel like you've had a child in front of extraterrestrials or with extraterrestrials? You know, so it's a very difficult topic to talk about. But what makes this so powerful is the fact that we're having emotional response to this. I mean, look at how emotional we get when we connect with this information, because it's recognition of things that we have lived. And and much more something so delicate like bringing a life into creation, which is this genetically modified child, perhaps, you know, and we as women, men have also felt these experiences, but as women, you know, we have the side effects. We're gestating the child, we have miscarriages, we have all kinds of physical side effects that are as a result of this kind of interactions. And so it takes a toll on the body and the psyche and the emotions over time after years of not being able to connect this to something plausible. You know, in our, you know, we go to our doctors and the doctors don't know how to, you know, what to say about that. They give you all kinds of reasons. And we can talk about those in a moment. But the thing is that women are getting PTSD from this, you know, it's post-traumatic stress syndrome, because the thing is, like, how do you mix this thing that's happening to you whether you question whether it's conscious or subconscious, how do you bring that into the real life? And so that's where we can start talking about what is the human? Why is this being done? Why are we humans being utilized for a hybridization program? That's really where the question was for me years ago. It's like, I need to understand the truth. I'm very much a person that has to see how things function on the back end. If I don't understand that, I can't invest my time or energy into it. So the thing is that it gets very interesting when you start going down that way. Yeah.
So what were some of the answers that were given to you from the aliens about what this program is about? Because I'm very curious to know.
Yeah, so it's the information I got is, I guess, after having several experiences, and all my perspectives come from personal experiences of being on craft, different kinds of craft. So I have been a part of 4 different hybridization programs, and I have been an abductee since 5 years old. And so as a result of all these experiences, I actually have 24 hybrid children, which are a part of these different programs. So what that means, and what do I mean by programs, is that different races, it appears to be different races or different species that are carrying out different kinds of agendas, you can say, or this kind of propagation programs that they have of trying to create more life. And so, but they're different. How are they different? They're different in the techniques that they use, and they're different in the way that the product is being used. So the child that is being produced from that hybridization. And so that's where we can start to question, okay, so if these different races have different ways of doing things, how does that affect their product, the end product, just the child? And so how does that affect where that child is going to go next? So there's a couple different things. Some of the programs that I've been a part of, very low vibrational frequency per se, perceived as low, like draconian, reptilian kind of programs. And not to say that these are, and all reptilians are bad,
right?
Because we live in a dualistic expression, right? So there is good and bad to absolutely everything, including these kinds of extraterrestrial races. So those, some of them are lower, and some of these children are more like interdimensional beings. Some of them can even be what we may know as entities, or these consciousness that is manipulated. And some of these children that are being made are used for very negative programs, okay? So from those programs. Now, then we have the higher, let's say we're going to call them higher vibrational frequencies. Why do we call them that? Because we're dealing with more humanoid, we're dealing with gray types, any other kind of race that we can think of. And what I mean by high vibration is that they're not being used for a negative program,
right?
Supposedly. These children are being utilized to be taught on craft. They have crafts that are called hybridization crafts, in which they are dedicated to the entire hybridization program and to schooling, training these children into whatever specific agenda that they're looking for. Now, there is also the other aspect of the children that are coming back into the reincarnation cycle. Okay. And so this really brings this whole thing kind of full round, that some of the children that are being born are coming back into the reincarnation as children that we're having here on this planet, and that we call them our children. How do we know that? We can kind of look to the work of Mary Rodwell. She does a lot of research on this, on hybrid children that are highly advanced intellectually. At the age of 8, they're describing to you the physics of the universe. And so this kind of really high intelligence is something that's, unlike our normal child, that we have. So this, and of course, it's not just that. There's many other factors to the identification of these kinds of children. So what that tells us is that what we're doing here is we are participating in a hybridization program that creates life to be used on multiple planes of existence, right? There's physical and even non-physical or interdimensional, perhaps.
Yes.
So the main purpose of that is, what are they utilizing to create these children? It's really the soul essence of the human that is really being utilized, like the thread of life that's being kind of used to create these life forms. So then when I started to realize that, because we begin to look at our bodies, our human bodies, and we are more than just physical, we're multidimensional.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've been able to see, and this is not information that was given by extraterrestrials, this is information that I have been able to understand by the ability of looking at the multidimensional body in combination with all of these experiences that I've had being on board these hybridization crafts and seeing how they carry things out and their kind of the feelings, the emotions, their purposes, behind the things that they're doing. So what makes us humans so valuable is that really what we are is kind of like a holographic structure of information. And the thread that the engine per se that runs that program of a hologram is really the main substance. Okay, this main substance that's the thread of all life is what is being, in a sense, fragmented. Okay, it's being fragmented, or you could say spliced, to create these other life forms. Okay, so when the hybridization program happens, we're inseminated. The DNA that's being inseminated into the body is actually a cocktail of DNA, which means that it's not going to be just one species. Oftentimes, it's more than one species. How do we know that? We know that because when we meet our children, we're seeing half human, half reptilian, half human, half grays. These are beings that are completely of a different mix of a race of some sort. So it's very interesting to see that. And so that helps us understand that what they're doing is they're blending not just races for the looks, but information, genetic information. What is genetic information? Our bodies, our human bodies, are these holographic structure, even down to the cellular level. We are oscillating, every single cell is oscillating to create toroidal fields. And all of those fields create this kind of network of information that creates this hologram. But all of that runs from the engine of the information that's being fed from our DNA. Okay, and so the DNA is fed by the information that comes in from a much higher source of infinite consciousness or infinite information, which is the soul. And that soul is basically what is coming into the different dimensions of the human body and what makes this entire organism function. We are physical and non-physical, but the fact of the matter, the human really looks like this giant organism of information. Okay, so when this DNA is being combined, whether it's organic or inorganic species, and I'll explain that in just a second, this information is being combined in order to create a new life form. And the new life form now contains the information of both species, multiple species, however many species are there. They have the ability to communicate and interact within those lines of information. So that's what makes these hybrids so incredibly valuable and important. But then more so, the soul is being really utilized as, a thread of continuing the expansion of different races across the multiverse or whatever it is that we live in. This living organism that has different parts. Yeah. So that's one of them. And of course, the other side of that is the children that are coming back into the reincarnation cycle, as we know from Mary's work, is that they're highly intelligent. So are these children being created in order to pull our human race forward to help us evolve? That would be the next question. And of course, I have some thoughts on that. We can talk about it more because there's really so much to understand about the human body and the soul and how it works.
Yes, I actually believe that I shouldn't say just two, but there are two of my grandchildren that stand out as those children that are coming back, reincarnated. Actually three. And I think the third one is the youngest one, but I think he was brought back the way he is now because he's autistic for a specific reason. But the other two, one just turned 10. He's reading on an 8th grade reading level.
Wow.
I mean, he's the kid blows my mind. And then there's the 5-year-old. So those three really stand out of all of my grandchildren that are returning hybrid babies.
The one with autism, though, seems to see things.
Oh yeah,
around him.
he sees things, other dimensional things around us. Even ever since he was really little, he's 3 now. But he would have conversations with. He'd be looking that way and having a conversation in his own little way. My daughter, the one that's the twin that stayed here, she had her. At first I thought they were imaginary friends, and she's the youngest one. There's quite a difference. There's 9 years between my youngest and my oldest. So she was home with adults all the time. So she pretty much had to play by herself. That's why I thought they were imaginary friends at first. And I had already known that I had lost her twin 3 years earlier. I already knew that I had already been shown her twin by the extraterrestrials. She didn't. She was only 3. So my mom one day looked at her and said, "Jackie, who are you talking to?" And she said, "My friends, Cadus and Betis and Radis." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then she threw the clincher and said, "And KB is my sister." She had no idea that she had lost her twin, that it was not here with us.
Yeah.
So when she said that, I was like, oh my God, she already knows. Because she told me one of them is the teacher, one is the doctor, one is, I forgot what she said. It was so long. She's 24 now. So, but my daughter also showed, she was in gifted classes when she was younger because she was just beyond her peers in intelligence.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, it really is very interesting to see these children and to see their potential and what they're capable of doing, you know. And that really, one of the things that we learn from that is to prepare as parents to be able to hold space for these children. Because I have mothers that are kind of writing to me, sometimes panicking. They don't know how to deal with the child that is on that level. You know, there's a whole different way of being. And it really, the invitation is really to be absolutely present and focused on having, you know, that bigger picture view so we can help guide them into coming into that human that they came here to be, you know. And it's very interesting because children are like a gift. They're an extension of ourselves. I mean, if we look at the genetic lineage of ourselves, we're a product of whatever we have lived in our ancestral lineage. Everything, the trauma, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that actually is in our DNA. It's programmed in the DNA. And so when we have children, each generation that comes in is an opportunity for healing and transformation of that genetic lineage. So what's really being called, and what we're seeing here, this is a beautiful example, is that really ascension, this evolution of the human race, is available to us, you know, through each and every one of us. And the way that we manage the relationships and the way that we see the world is the key to really taking us into that next new world, per se, you know.
Yes, definitely. Have you seen your children since 2013?
I have not. Well, in the very beginning, I communicated with them through light language. And it was a very funny experience, actually, in 2017, I think towards the end of 2017, December, my grandmother passed away. And this week I was meditating a lot, and I was starting to feel this urge to speak in this strange language. And it was so strange to me because I'd never heard such a thing. And as I started to speak it out, I recorded it, you know, and I met this gentleman that does translation of light language. And so I embarrassingly sent him my gibberish, and I said, please, you know, if you could look at that and let me know if that's something, or, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm just losing it. So he translates an entire conversation with these children and with my grandmother, information about my family through light language. So it's just another form of communication that I guess is available to us. And I believe, you know, when I had my abduction experience, as you'll see in the film, I'm given massive amounts of this alien language of information that I'm trying to look at and absorb. And what I've realized is that information that they were giving me was everything that I basically talk about in the regressions, which are all public. You can see all my hypnosis regressions with the information that I bring in from that language that they were showing me. And I think it's that experience that unlocks in us the ability to communicate with these kinds of interdimensional beings through light language. And it's incredible when I started to look up light language. I mean, a lot of people are speaking light language now, so it's like we're tapping into these new waves of communication. So that was my last time that I tried to communicate with them. And the reason for that is because my perception on this extraterrestrial hybridization program has also changed slightly in regards to the overall picture of what we're doing here. I love the idea of connecting and looking at them, but also we have to keep in mind that as souls, we are here to evolve, to move. And one of the things that I've kind of realized through this experience is that the reincarnation cycle that we're in is something that we can choose to move out or return back into. If you think about it, a lot of us have centuries of lives that we are sharing here on this planet together. And it's like we're reliving this kind of karma over and over again, the pain, the suffering over and over again. But one of the things that I realized, and that's very interesting also, that has to do with hybrids, is that this information that we're holding on in our DNA is also being passed down to these hybrids that are being born, and in a way that creates a vibrational frequency. So your entire information of your body creates and emits a signature, a very specific signature, like a crystal that is just you. Linda, Richard, myself, everyone's here. We all have our unique signature. And so these hybrids are also harboring that, and that will indicate where that being will be allocated for their reincarnation or for their experience. So it's really interesting to really understand this, because it puts a lot of focus on what we're doing every day of our lives here, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we have these children, when the soul is fragmented, okay, because when we have any child, a part of our soul is being taken and put into this child, okay? So that child is holding on to all that information. We are actually fragmented in multiple layers, okay? The human body, through all traumatic experiences, our soul is being fragmented. And that's why soul reintegration is so important. So these hybrid children are also holding that information. And I feel that it's a part of the reintegration of ourselves. It lies within those children as well. And you can reintegrate from that as well. It's very interesting.
Wow. Did you have a question?
I did. I was curious I don't know if you've gone into this with your research, but if it has, how have you seen this affecting men in these kind of relationships?
Perfect.
How is it coming down on them or affecting them in different ways?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question, because it's really important. I get messages from a lot of people, men particularly, that are experiencing trauma as a result of this, And the reason why it's trauma is because, again, it's hard to, I'm just going to go into some details. They wake up from what they believe is a dream of having sexual intercourse or being in this medical lab environment where their, genetic material is being taken. So, they take the semen. And so there's different ways of collecting that. One of the ways is through sexual intercourse, which is basically what you can say like a virtual reality or holographic interaction with a screened image of a woman. And most times it's not necessarily a woman, it's actually another extraterrestrial. Now, what they will do is they will screen this image of the actual extraterrestrial and make it look like something that is appealing to the man based on what his thoughts are, what he believes is beautiful, whatever it is. And so they'll have the intercourse, and the next day he wakes up again feeling, soreness in the body, marks on the body sometimes. They even wake up with some of their genetic material, on their bed in their body. And a lot of people, they say, well, what's the difference between that and a wet dream, for example? Okay. And the difference really has to do with the kind of trauma that's as a result of that, and not just that, but the marks on the body. Okay. Sometimes men have scars on their body. They have injection marks on their arm. They have little scars that are like pointed dots. The most popular thing are scars that look like triangles. Okay. And these are scars that appear from one day to the next day. It's not just something that you bumped yourself and now you're just recovering from it. This is one day to the next day. You have healed scars on your body. Okay.
Yeah.
We've had several of those over the years, both of us. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's very interesting. I mean, usually, when there's partnerships like that, both of them are usually experiencing things. One may remember, one may not recall what happened. But the interesting thing is that you begin to notice these things. And so one of the suggestions I have for those that are having these experiences is start writing them down and documenting what you're experiencing, because it'll help you kind of differentiate, what's the difference between an any-day scar or bump that you can have on your body with these kinds of anomalous experiences that are very clear. You're definitely going to know that it's something that's not, just a regular scar. Now, the other thing from that is that a lot of times the body feels sore. So men will wake up with their body really sore, men and women. You feel literally that you got hit by a truck. And so the explanation for that is that when you're being connected with these interdimensional beings, your body is literally aligning to a different dimension. Okay, you're coming into a different time, space, and environment, which is a lot of stress on the physical body. And so when you're brought back, to the three-dimensional plane, the body is kind of readjusting to that. Other things that can happen for men is that they get very ill, flu-like symptoms, or they get a lot of nausea because of injections or things that have been injected into their body, the kind of liquids that are being injected. And of course, within the hybridization program, because there's different programs, what you see will tell you what kind of program you're involved in. If you are in something that looks like an underground base or more like a hospital, there is a hybridization program within that. If you are seeing things that are more vibrational, more light, it feels like this fogginess or this light that you don't know where it comes from, these round rooms that are sterile, but very advanced technology type of environments, you're probably looking at more extraterrestrial interaction. Okay, so there's a lot of different things, and also the tools that they utilize are very different. Okay, so the tools of extraterrestrial contact will be, they look more advanced, more minimalistic, more simple, more flowy per se. Like they seem to come from out of nowhere, and come into your space, as opposed to when it's in military, you're looking at, tools that you can tell. It looks like a dental chair. It looks like a syringe, So these are the kind of things that you kind of want to look out to see what's the difference. Why do I tell you that? A lot of people that have military abductions are experiencing them in areas that are closer to military bases or underground bases. And I get that a lot. And these are both men and women. And both of them cause trauma because, at night you're going to sleep and next thing you know, you're knocked out. You know that you're being taken unconsciously sometimes. And sometimes people don't remember a thing, but find the marks on their body. And later on through regression, they begin to recall those experiences, And so that's when all the experience come out. Now, the interesting thing psychologically about these experiences is that sometimes because trauma can be so much on the body will try to suppress those emotions. So it can take several hypnosis sessions to try to uncover that information. And the purpose for the hypnosis is to help integrate that information for the individual to find some resolve in understanding what happened. Because what causes a lot of this trauma is, of course, fear, and fear is the unknown, right? What do we
Exactly.
fear? We fear things that we don't know. So when we feel like we're blindsided and we don't know what happened, we can come up with any number of ideas and things, and we begin to feel scared, and that's really unhealthy for us. So if you are experiencing a lot of trauma as a result of this contact, please try to seek out some help to help you find resolve. But my suggestion is to really take time to meditate and connect with yourself and find out why you want to know this information. Because, for example, what happened to me is when I went into this session, I didn't even think that extraterrestrials would be that much of an impact on my life as it was. Okay. So it was a bit of an existential crisis, understanding that this entire reality existed out there that I was unaware of, So it's important to have that conversation with yourself before you go in there, so you know what you're getting into, and you can hear other people's stories and great interviews like this where you can learn a little bit more about what to look for.
How does one go about finding a hypnotherapist that will actually help you? Because the very first one that I went to in New York was 1997 or 8. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get much out of it from her, even though she was supposedly someone who was familiar with the UFO community. But it was still very early. 97, 96, 97, 98 everybody was still really just starting to come out with all of this stuff out on the East Coast. So nowadays there's plenty of people. So how do you recommend for people to find a good hypnotherapist?
That's an excellent question. And it's incredibly important for you to work with someone that you trust.
Yeah.
That is going to be very professional with the kind of information that you're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
With the hypnosis field, there's a lot of controversy also in the quality of the hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
Looking for people that are not going to lead into questions or try to tamper with the information is very important. So you need to be able to find a very qualified, someone that has experience. I would say, first of all, interview them. And, if you know that what you're looking for is information on extraterrestrial contact, see if they feel comfortable doing that, because I know some hypnotherapists that don't feel comfortable. And so they're probably not going to want to ask the questions or know whether they can go deeper into that information. So someone that's really in touch with themselves and has the ability to ask these kinds of questions that are so important in that moment, when you're discovering, when you're in a room, when you're looking at things, to hold space for you, where you can feel safe and guided and protected during those experiences. So somebody that has a lot of experience, somebody that has feels comfortable talking about the extraterrestrial topic. And there are some great hypnotherapists within the field, but like you said, not all of them are going to be so great. So if you find a hypnotherapist that's not in the field, that's great, as long as they feel comfortable and have the experience to be able to safely guide you through those experiences in a very supportive manner. I also think that, in my opinion, hypnotherapists that have an understanding of the spiritual side of things would also be very, very helpful. And the reason why I say that is because what helped me as a result of that is to have a little bit of healing from that experience, someone that will help bring it home. Not all hypnotherapists work in that way. Some of them don't know how to help you, support you emotionally and spiritually from that experience. So maybe finding someone that has a little bit more experience in that, because, when we go into all these things, what you'll realize is that the further you go down the rabbit hole of spirituality, you're going to be met with extraterrestrial consciousness. Mm-hmm. And the further you go down the rabbit hole of this extraterrestrials or science even, you're going to be met with consciousness, right? So it's like we're coming full circle to this information. And so what we're doing here, and this is a really important thing, all of you that are contactees that have had experience, you remember your experience for a reason, Okay. It's not just pure luck that you happen to remember the experiences that you have. You know, there are hundreds of people that they cannot remember what they saw, you know, but they know that something happened. They know that they had some kind of experience.
My sister's one of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she refuses to delve into it and look into it deeper because she's still afraid, even though it's been 50 years, maybe 40 something, she's still afraid to actually remember what happened, but yet she knows something happened.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I hear that too. I mean, even within my own family, you know, there's people that have had strange experiences, and it's still hard. And, you know, I don't blame them. We're talking about how difficult it is to integrate.
It is difficult, yeah.
You know, yeah. And so it's just an added layer into the reality. I mean, look at how our world is today. You know, we never could imagine that this would happen in a million years, and here we are.
Yep.
And so, but the thing is that little by little, we'll be coming into new information too. I think we're coming close to being able to talk about these things at some point. But this is things like what you're doing, Richard and Linda. This is what helps bridge these gaps, you know, in perception. So that's what makes it so important. Now, those of you that are afraid of trying to see this information, you know, that's okay. Again, ask yourself the question, what makes it fearful? But those of you that remember, I mean, you are the voices. You are the voices of this phenomena, of this completely different dimension of understanding our universe, our world that we live in. And it's a very real thing. So we got to get talking about it. You know, if you have the experience, we have to share it and talk about it. Yeah.
I know that talking about it for myself over the years, especially more so now that I've been in New Mexico, has been very therapeutic for me, very much so, especially now that I'm finding more and more people that have had the same experiences as me. I've had experiences since I'm 3 years old. 1967 was the very first time I had an experience. My sister and I have had experiences together. And then in the 90s, it was my mom, my dad, my sister, myself, all four of my kids, my ex-husband, and that's how I met Richard. It was back in 1995. And then through being friends with him for all those years, we realized that we've known each other since childhood on ships.
Wow. That's
so
incredible. Yeah.
Should I tell her what happened when I first met you in the gallery?
Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, talking about hybrid children and whatnot. The very first time.
My cat's going nuts.
I know. The very first time we met each other, it was at my my art gallery exhibition with my artwork on this topic, and she was invited to come by her mom, who I already knew as a friend through an organization called Star People at the time, and this was in New York. So as soon as she walks into the gallery, my eyes locked on her, like I knew her, and I was like, who is this person? I have to know her. I know her already, but I've never met her before. And so I could not take my eyes off of her because I knew her somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very pregnant, 9 months pregnant, with her youngest, who is now 24.
The twin, the
twin,
hybrid twin.
Right.
Wow.
And never being a father, never having any inclination to have children, the first thing that came into mind when I looked at her was I just thought, that's mine. And I don't know where that thought came from. It's just somehow I knew that was mine. So, and that's where things went from there. As soon as we shook hands with each other, there was an instantaneous spark that there was something more going on that we needed to talk about. So.
Wow, that is unbelievable. And so how did you even have that conversation? I mean, you know, how do you?
We've known each other for 25 years now. So it's been a series of conversations over the years. From 1995 until 2000, we lived very close to each other. Yeah. Although I was still married to somebody else.
Yeah.
He, myself, my mom, his mom, we all belonged to that group called Star People. And then there was another group called the Eyes of Learning. So we were always in the same group. And we had time to have all those conversations. I mean, we both have the same memory of holding hands on a ship, walking through the ship and finding ourselves in this massive room filled with jars or tubes or whatever, cylinders
yeah,
of babies, just thousands upon thousands of rows of babies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were just like,
and they all turned and responded to us.
The tubes actually turned towards us when they heard us coming into the room.
They could tell.
They were crazy.
They recognized us, but we could tell that our presence confused them because they could tell that we were not like them. And it was almost like, why aren't they in cylinders like us?
Right.
Why are they walking around?
Now,
so,
and being a mother, I know that those fetuses were maybe 20 weeks gestation in utero.
Yeah.
But they knew, they were aware of us. They had a consciousness. They were aware that we were there. They were the ones that were able to move the tubes towards us. And the whole room was glowing, what, blue-ish?
Yeah, it was like
an odd bluish green color.
The light was coming from
the underneath
the bottom of the walls.
Boards. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally relate to everything you just said there. I mean, I've seen the walls of incubation tanks. The ones that I saw were round, but the light that comes from the floor or from the wall, it's just like that. So that's incredible. That is such an incredible, powerful story. Yes. Go ahead.
So when are you going to be writing a book about all of this?
Well, it's right there, and I am writing.
You're finally getting to the book. That's awesome.
Yes. Well, you know what? It's been a work in progress for a couple of years now, and it is a lot of work. And it's not just one book, and this is why it becomes so complicated, because it's like so much detail that is important that it's hard to pack it into one book. So I thought, let me clean it up.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
That's why it's when I started writing myself, I was like, I'm never going to be able to fit this all into the first book. So
he's on book 3 right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm working on the 3rd one.
So when we met you at Stargate to the Cosmos, that's when you had started preparing for all that, right? With the book.
That's correct.
Yeah,
that's right.
Very
so,
cool.
So it's a work in progress, and I've been able to focus more on it now, more than ever.
Okay.
Since
So are you just accomplishing it as you go, or do you have a timetable you've put yourself on to get it done by?
I go as I can.
Okay.
Yeah, because for me, I'm really, really busy, actually. I mean, I have a lot of clients during the week. My 9 to 5, is basically doing sessions internationally. So doing DNA reprogramming. And so the time that I have to write is usually in the evening time or on the weekends if I'm not doing a retreat. So with the quarantine, it's kind of allowed me to have weekend time instead of traveling.
There you go. Yes.
Cool. So yeah, that's been really nice. But another thing that I really wanted to kind of just talk, I'm not sure how much time we have left.
Oh, we have plenty.
But I wanted to talk about the process of insemination, because I thought it was very interesting, Linda, that you were talking about the 21-week gestation in the tanks. And so how does this hybridization program work? What happens? I just really briefly want to take people through that so they know, because a lot of women feel it and they don't know, what happens.
Yeah, when I was pregnant with the girls, I think it was about 15 weeks when I started bleeding, and that's when I realized something's not right.
Wow.
So they take them when they're very small.
Exactly. And so usually it's a process of priming the host. I'm going to call it a host. We are the host.
Yes.
At a very early age, usually, you had your first contact at 3. I had mine at 5. And during those visits, it's about implantation of technology that preps the body for when you're ready to have insemination. Okay, probably when you start your cycle. And so throughout the visits, usually start at the time when you're starting your cycle. Then you have your first insemination, and the insemination process usually doesn't last more than 3-4 months maximum, as far as I've seen. and the child will then be extracted from the body. The fetus will be extracted from the body and will be placed into an incubation tank that's like a spherical tube that has a kind of like this fake umbilical cord. Yeah, that will feed it to this kind of machine that is then placed into these wall tanks, literally. And that's where they continue their gestation until they're ready to come out. Now, what I've noticed, and I don't know, Linda, if you've experienced this, but I've noticed that they tend to speed up the gestation process in the body as well.
Yes.
Sometimes. And it's interesting because sometimes the fetus that's removed is larger, even if it had just been 3 weeks, 4 weeks, than, a human child. And so I don't know if that's because of the genetic mix. The other part that I want to talk about is that the insemination process is kind of a 3-part step. When they do insemination, the implants that take place inside of the uterus or inside of the body are meant to create the environment that will be able to sustain the vibrational frequency of this combination of DNA. Okay, because any normal case, a human would not be able to gestate this child of a hybrid, fetus. Okay, so the body has to be prepared in order to be able to gestate an organism that is so foreign like this. Okay, because otherwise it would cause toxicity in the body, and the body would reject it. We would just reject it. I mean, even when we get pregnant, we go through this process. Yep. Taking in the child as a part of us. So when we're doing this insemination with these different kinds of species, some of them are mixed with reptilians. One of my children is reptilian, half gray, half human, and so it's a complete different mix of information that the body has to be able to sustain. So when it's taken out, all of the technology sometimes is cleared out of the body. Sometimes it stays within the body. So this takes me to the next part when you were talking about hypnosis. Some hypnotherapists can help you remove some of these etheric implants. So that's another thing that I would like, for you to take into consideration when you're doing your research with hypnotherapists to work with, because some of these implants, actually all of them, are organic and inorganic. Okay, so that means physical, non-physical. Some of them are like actual metal pieces that you're going to feel beads in your body, and some of them are half in the body and also etheric. Okay, so they're energetic. They affect the multidimensional body more than they're affecting your physical body. And a lot of times it distorts the body, okay? And so sometimes we end up getting ill or sicknesses, or we have thyroid problems, or we're starting to have problems in the uterus, for example, like cysts of some kind. And those are responses to some of this technology. Not in all cases, but in some cases. And something that we see a lot in hybrid mothers is that they have endometriosis, they have cysts in their body. And for me, for example, at the age of 15, 16 years old, I found a cyst in the body, that was highly developed. I mean, the doctor said this looks like a cyst of someone that's had a lot of children or has been pregnant many times. And I'm like 16, haven't, a virgin still, haven't had intercourse ever. So, these kinds of anomalies that are not common are the kinds of things that really help us look at this phenomena, in a much more serious light. And the effect that it takes on a woman of going through the process of being pregnant and then losing the child in miscarriage. And a lot of things, women go to the doctor and they get told that it's a blighted ovum, which means that basically the sac that holds the fetus is missing, and it's just the uterine lining that's left behind. It's a very clean, uterine lining, but the sac with the fetus is missing. Okay, so then that's the thing that we've been hearing a lot with these kinds of hybridization experiences, and so that's, and usually the doctor will say, oh, well, maybe you're stressed out, or, it's a product of hormones, having too many hormones, a result of certain medication that you're taking, stress, anxiety, and all those things could be true. But when you mix them with events like dreams or images or visions of being inside this medical environment, or becoming pregnant when you're not partnered, which is what happened to me several times, how do you explain that? It's okay for it to be an anomaly maybe once in your life, okay?
Right. Yeah.
If it's happening routinely or every couple of years, that's something that we need to look into. And so it's affecting the health and psychology of women out there that they think they're going crazy because every time they go to the doctor can't support them in that. Mm-hmm. Of course, the medical industry is a whole other topic.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that. For many years, I've always thought that it would be phenomenal to try and uncover all of these hidden or obscured or just plain old missed medical reports that would correspond to all these anomalies, whether it's medical doctors, obstetricians, gynecologists, whoever. Is there any way to access that information, track it down, or is it just impossible to find it?
Richard, I have been working on that for the past 3 years. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, I have been interviewing as many gynecologists here in the Bay Area that I can to talk to them. I try to talk to women to see if they would be more open to having the discussion.
Right.
But it's very difficult, first of all, to get medical records of people, and people that have experienced them, even they want to share their medical records. It's difficult to get that information and make it public because
thanks to HIPAA.
Yes, and other things. I mean, all kinds of red tape everywhere. It's very difficult. So the thing is, like, my question is, in the medical field, and I interviewed this doctor from Harvard that was doing a research on extraterrestrial contact, and I said, listen, how is it that you doctors are not questioning this phenomena when it keeps happening over and over again? People come to you and they say, I have these experiences, and now I'm pregnant, and now I'm lost a child. I'm not partnered. That's something that's important that we need to pay attention to, and it's like they have some medical records. It was easier back in the 80s and in the 70s to get this information than it is now. But even then, the doctors themselves said anytime that we tried to go deeper into this information, the medical field, I forget the name of the organization, they don't want to take that into consideration. They don't want to take it as something serious.
I know.
It's very difficult, but I agree with you, Richard. We should be able to do that, and I am trying to.
It sounds like it's as time went on, and by the time the 90s came along, the public awareness of this happening might have become a threatening issue, and so there must have been a decision from the top down, from in the medical industry, which is dominated by men anyway, and that's a big problem itself, where they decided to put the kibosh on that. Whatever other legal reasons there would have been, it just seems like, this is the convenient fallout where no one wants to look at that's staring them right in the face and say, oh yeah, here's the medical records that prove it. And that's not going to happen now because now it's swept away and hidden.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right about that. And it's not just because you got to take into consideration some of these can be extraterrestrial, but some of these are also terrestrial programs. So,
and that's where the problem lies right there.
Exactly.
The government doesn't want to be outed.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
And that's a very serious thing because, then that goes into the whole question of, oh my God, so we're being kidnapped and we're being inseminated or we're being tested on,
by our own.
And so then it goes to the questions, well, are they working together? Are these two programs working together?
I think some are and some aren't.
Yeah. I tend to think that they are. I mean, here's the broader perspective that I think at this point I've gotten to, because I've kind of run through all this information so much. It's like, look, all of you, the whole purpose, whether you're high or low, you're trying to get our genetic material for some reason. My problem with that is, listen, we're sovereign and we have free will. So where does our free will play into this role? Okay. And so that's where my research is also going. We as humans have the ability in this small 100 years to become conscious, to become aware of what's happening, all these layers of reality that we're discussing and kind of talking about here. But the question is, at what point does the human say, no, I don't want to be a part of that, or yes, I want to be a part of that? You know, does that play a role anywhere? So we begin to question our free will, and how does it become hijacked by organizations, whether they're high vibration or low vibration? What gives them the ability to be able to have these interactions with us? And so that really goes into the topic of consciousness. Okay. What makes us conscious and unconscious? The choices that we make in our life make us available to these kinds of experiences. What I think happens is that we make these kinds of agreements probably in other lifetimes or even other states of consciousness, like dream time, you know, or other aspects, astral travel, in which we're not so conscious. We then are taken into these kinds of agreements to be a part of these hybridization programs. You know, so the thing is, like, for me, if you are a human that's experiencing this, the most important takeaway out of this entire thing for me is the understanding that we have the ability to be completely powerful in choosing our experiences. But in order to do that, we have to be absolutely present and aware of our current state.
Yes.
And current state is including waking time, dream time, and even preparation for death. Because if we're talking about a reincarnation cycle where children are being put into the reincarnation cycle, inserted into certain timelines, that means there's some kind of control or directed manipulation of consciousness, right? So, you know, it's a much bigger thing than just that. And if the terrestrial program is doing that, then there's also another genetic modification that's occurring. And the genetic modification on our planet is not just about hybridization program or these kidnappings or abductions that are occurring, but we're talking about the hijacking of the human race from the point of the food that you're eating. I mean, we're being genetically modified by the food that we eat, by the stress, the anxiety. Look at the fear that's been happening. Look at these viruses that are also genetically modified, that, you know, they really change the human over time, all of these experiences. Okay, so that is also a part of genetic modification on a much larger scale. Okay, the whole purpose of all of these programs is to sustain this vessel in a certain state. It's controlling the expression that this human vessel has. So what's infinite is that soul, and that soul has the ability of becoming conscious and choosing things that are not going to continue to suppress it and maintain it in this slave-like you know, victim, pain, suffering belief system. Okay? That has to change. That has to change. And so these conversations that we have about hybridization, about all of that, is to understand what is this multidimensional body. This incredibly powerful vessel is actually the most advanced biotechnology in this matrix multiverse. Okay? And it becomes powerful when it becomes conscious. You know, how do I know this? I know this because I was able to cut the programs that I had with these, let's say, malignant extraterrestrials that are trying to come and take. And I've had many experiences since 2016, 2017, conscious experiences with low vibration entities that want to come in, hijack things, take things, you know, and terrestrial. And what I've learned is that if you break these contractual agreements, if you change your vibrational frequency, you can move away from those experiences. I have mothers that have children that are experiencing abductions. Because of the technology that these extraterrestrials have, they feel very helpless to that. whether you like it or not, you're out at 3 a.m. and the child can be taken.
Yeah.
So then what do you do in these cases? It really calls for a tremendous amount of work with these contractual agreements to break and take back your power and say, no, we're not going to be a participant of this anymore. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so first is the awareness, and then it's the application of understanding how to break those contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I do teach this, and it's something that we discuss. I also want to add that you talked about having these support groups, which is also a really important element to learning and educating ourselves on what's happening. You know, I mean, when I went to my first support group, it was such incredible support and cathartic experience to be able to listen to another person that had the same experience as me, you know.
Sorry, dog issue.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
I'm gonna take this opportunity to go for a break for a few minutes so that way you can go get water or whatever you need to do. And then when we come back, I'd like to know some of the questions that you're asking these other women.
Yes.
I'm very curious. Maybe I can answer something or give you some information for your research, but we'll be right back.
Thank you.
I got my first real six string, bought it at the 5 and dime, played it till my fingers bled. Was the summer of '69. Me and some guys from school had a band and we tried real hard. Jimmy quit, Jody got married. I should've known we'd never get far.
Okay, we're back.
Hello.
So,
We're
since
just
Geraldine's not back yet,
and
just want to make sure that everybody gets this book.
hold it up.
That's your book too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'm working on book 3.
Just
wow, awesome.
So
that's book 2. Okay, so Geraldine's back. Stop talking.
Thank you. I know she's back. Geraldine, before we dive
You
in,
had an epiphany before you got back.
Before we go into what you and Linda were going to bring up, I just wanted to point out to everybody listening that what we've been talking about today, it gives a brand new perspective on everything concerning ancient aliens, human origins, and biological evolution, as well as religious and cultural belief systems that developed along the way. Because if you have entities coming at 3 a.m. and doing whatever they want, then, you start taking that back 500,000 years, and it changes the entire scope of the whole conversation.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, I guess it's nothing's changed. I mean, it's been happening since the early ages, and continues to happen. I mean, and if we take the conversation all the way back, I mean, that's wonderful that you brought that up, because it takes us back to the origins of even our life. I mean, what is the hybridization program? If some of these hybrids are being put back into the timeline, being born as our children, so what does that make us?
Exactly.
Just 2,000 years ago, we have someone in common. You and I have a relative, so we all have, there's an origin point to this human race. If you go back to Mesopotamia, there were, and this is the information that I'm bringing in, is 3 main bloodlines that seeded life on this planet. And these 3 main bloodlines have evolved into these families where the blood was preserved, through, of course, incest, and maintaining it as rich as possible for centuries. They have developed into these families that have gone into the royal family, into some of these lineages of power, of course, because they have manipulated and utilized these families to create larger groups of their own agenda, of their own focus, So it's been interesting to see that. But what we look at now is we look at our world today, and what has that manifested into? It has manifested into somewhat of a monopoly of power and control. Only 147 companies own all of the companies in the entire world. Okay, and so what that means, and all of those companies are being funded by 11 banks. Half of those are in China. Okay, so let's take a look at the economy. If our entire economic system is run by these small group of people, that means that if they have a certain vision in mind, if they have one way of looking at things or prioritizing things, that we're going to be feeling that in every sector, in the things that we're buying at the grocery store, in the pharmaceuticals that we're taking, in the education that our kids are getting, so it's a very one-sided vision. And what is that vision looking like? I mean, if we look at our brothers and sisters around us, there's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of constant struggle. We don't even need to look at suffering. Let's just look at everyday life. It's survival, paying the bills, trying to survive, making sure that we're on top of those things. And that is a kind of mentality. It is a system that is imposed into our, humanity right now, worldwide, globally. So that really raises the question as to where's the priority of these main groups of people that are managing everything, our reality, basically. Look at what's been happening now with, more than ever, I feel like the veil has been lifted with this quarantine, where we've really looked at kind of like the backbones of this system and where the flaws are, right? Because we've become aware of how codependent we are of the system, the food and where we get our water. I mean, look at that from one to the next. Yeah, we can be completely without those things. So I think that this was a good opportunity to look at how we can be more self-sustaining, how we can learn how to grow our own food, have our own clean water. We need to be thinking about these things because we need to start noticing a holistic lifestyle involves the food that we're eating, our spiritual self, the emotional self. All of that has to be in balance in order for a human to thrive. It's like a plant. If it doesn't have the good soil, the water and the air and the sun, it's going to die.
Yes.
So, that kind of awareness of whole healing and whole wellness is imperative to the survival, not just survival, the well-being and the thriving of ourselves as humans.
Yeah.
So, and that really, when you look at that, it pulls away from the system. It pulls away from all of these systems that have been designed to not do that, So we are a product of that. It's a genetic, it's an entire world of genetic modification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. For a long time.
You were going to bring up something about the questions?
No, I was going to ask her what kind of questions she was asking other women.
Yeah, I mean, questions like, for example, have you had miscarriages or have you been pregnant when you were not partnered, for example?
19.
19 times.
No, 19 was the very first time that
19 happened. Okay. Very interesting. Yeah. So, these are the kind of questions, and also, more intimate questions, like when you were pregnant, what are some of the symptoms that happened? You have the pregnancy symptoms. How did the miscarriage happen? Did you see a doctor? Was it recorded?
Yes.
What did they classify it as? Did they classify it as a bladderotum or what? I mean, I don't know if you.
No, they classified it as a miscarriage, just a natural miscarriage. But for some reason, I bled and had so much pain. It was, I still to this day remember it. I'm 56 now. It was horrible. I was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Crampy and
it's that's interesting. The pain is different, and of course everyone is different. Every woman was going to experience different things. But the funny thing is that so for example, in your experience, did you have visions or did you have conscious contact when you became pregnant?
Not at that age, no. There was a time frame between, I'd say, about 13 until 95. So from 13, which was 70, I'd say around 79 until 95, I don't have any real memories of any kind of extraterrestrial contact. There was a long span there where I have almost no memories of even some of my childhood. Because I was still in 79, I was 15, 14, something like that.
Yeah. And have you had regression?
Twice.
Okay. Yeah. Were you able to recall any of those memories at all, or?
Nope.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So, some of these memories are so suppressed. That's the thing. It really takes time. One of the things that I suggest my contactees to do, I have a support group called hybridmother.com, and is to do self-hypnosis on yourself, like when you go into meditation, to help train yourself and begin to lift up any of the other trauma, because trauma is trauma. Trauma, when you feel helpless in any way or hopeless, that's going to cause trauma. And that on a metaphysical perspective, on a multidimensional aspect in the body, makes the body go into fragmentation. The soul literally fragments. So what happens is parts of your soul are left in those timelines of those experiences. So that's why there's a huge disconnect between our access to it. However, how do you access that information is through the body, because the body is this massive recording system that every muscle, every cell in your body is holding on to the memory imprint of that experience based on what it was. So for example, if it's something that had to do with a heartbreak or something like that, you're going to store a lot of that information here in the core of your chest, in your solar plexus. If it has to do with the trauma with this hybridization program, you're going to hold it in the root chakra, in the sacral and the solar. Okay. So the lower parts of the body, lower back, hips, of course, the sexual organs are holding to a lot of this information. So we can access that information by, in meditation, going to those parts of the body and noticing what emotions come up. It's a very subtle and gentle practice that takes attention, but once you get used to doing that, it's incredible the amount of information that you can uncover from your body. Okay.
Wow.
Everything is recorded within us. We're like crystals. So that might help unlock, some of this trauma. Another thing that's interesting, Linda, is that this information for women and for men, it goes down, the hybridization goes down the mitochondrial lineage. Okay. So that means from your mother's DNA is where you are bringing down this kind of experience. So more than likely, your mother will have been involved in the hybridization program.
Oh, I have no doubt about it at all, because, and I only say that her interest only sparked in 1995-ish, late 94 into 95. But my sister posted a video clip of my parents' wedding from 1962. It was an 8mm film. She posted it. I happened to catch it on Facebook a couple of months ago, even though I've seen it a million times, this video. I happened to catch a UFO in that shot that my sister had on Facebook. So I know for a fact that it was generational.
There you
and
go.
It's even my kids now too. My youngest son still has experiences here in Albuquerque.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, there you go. See, and that's so interesting. And that's where we start to look at my family as well. My entire family has had contact experience. And I mean, one of my aunts was on craft when I was taken consciously in 2013. She was there. With, I saw her there. And it's one of the things that when we talked about it years later, she told me I was so sick the next day after that day that I had to go to the hospital. I had a fever that wasn't accounted for, that they didn't know where the fever came from. And she had like little scars on the back of her little neck here. So it's surreal. And really, if I hadn't gotten that regression to really understand what was happening, I would have never known that was happening. So a lot of people are experiencing this without being aware. It's just these little signs that you're looking for.
Yes.
If you're seeing craft very often. And I just tend to think anyone that is attracted to that phenomena, I really think that there is a subconscious knowing, subconscious connection to the phenomena on some level. Because not everyone is deeply connected to this stuff. But experiences like dreams with craft or with extraterrestrials or these kinds of abduction experiences, experiences that you are having scars on your body, physical aftermath, side effects like feeling very sick after having those kinds of experiences, scars on the body. Take note of what you're experiencing. Start a journal of your experiences so you can begin to track what's happening and how often it happens. That really helped me. I
did all that. I ended up writing a book about it because he pushed me to take all of that information and my mother's information, my mother's diary. So I combined the two of them and I finally published it in 2017. Great. But in it, I have pictures that we took over the years of all the strange markings that I have had on my body, the pinhole marks. I had a really strange one on the back of my neck. It was a long scratch, but at the end of each scratch was a triangle shape. There were 3 dots in the shape of a triangle. I've had triangle-shaped pinhole marks in my belly button. I've had so many. It's all in my book. I put all the pictures in there too. The real photographs are in there, plus drawings.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. So So as you can see, you know, this is something that is very real for people like me and you guys. I mean, we've had these experiences and they make up a huge part of our life, you know,
Yeah.
because it's changed a lot of things, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that's interesting is, you know, as a contactee, how do you take this back into the world? You know, how do you go back into, you integrate yourself back into everyday life? You know, and the answer is that's not going to be so easy. It's just not. And we have to be prepared for that, that it's good to talk about it if it feels like it's a safe place to talk about it. But, you know, we got to be conscious of the fact that there's people that are not going to be ready to hear this.
No.
There's people that are heavily involved in, you know, very external life or, you know, very much into the system thinking of entertainment and Hollywood and all these things. A lot of times, you know, those people won't be prepared to hear these things. So, and that's okay. It's not for everyone. It's your reality. And what's important is that you have healed from the experience.
Yeah.
I think that's really the thing, that you understand why you recall it and that you're carrying out your mission, your purpose for being here. And, you know, I might say that for a lot of you experiencers, you have this experience to give you another dimension in whatever it is that you're carrying out, whether you're a healer, you're a massage therapist, you're, you know, a teacher. This experience has given you another layer of dimensionality to reality that is unlike any other. You know, it's very interesting to have that perspective.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's also difficult just to go back to your everyday life and accept things as they are around you. Like in my day job, I'm on the phone all day and the kind of crap I hear from customers is just like, really, this is a big issue for you? Why don't you come back in 20 years and see if it's really that important?
Yeah.
Okay.
Their whole life revolves around their phone.
It's not just that. It's just the stuff they worry about. It's just like, if you only knew the bigger picture, you'd realize how petty you sound right now. So, and it's just things like, it makes it very hard for me to deal with my day job. You know, when you're coming in contact with people who, they have these small-minded problems that really don't mean a damn thing.
That's right. That's
and
right.
I'm supposed to act like this is important. So
Right. I understand completely. And
It
it's
is.
very hard. And
Yeah.
you know, Richard, it's like there's so many people that are experiencing that kind of contrast, you know. We want to come into our spiritual self. We want to come into our higher self, but it's so difficult when there's so much resistance from people that are still in denial about, I mean, the fact, the priorities in life, which are not, you know, little things.
Yeah.
And, you know, for that, you know, I talk to a lot about the spiritual aspect of the human body and how to heal ourselves in a sense where we come into empowerment. One of the things that this year is for more than anything is the integration of that higher self to the point where we are not being in resistance of the things that we're experiencing, because otherwise we fall into the same vibrational frequency that those people are at, you know. So it's the embodiment of our awareness that we are multidimensional beings, we are spiritual beings that are here to look at what you're doing. That day job is nothing, Richard. This is your thing. You do so much for the community, both of you, Linda and Richard. I mean, you guys are great, you know, and thank you for everything that you guys are doing. Not everyone has, and I know you guys work so hard and you go through so much. It's never easy.
No, and I'm hoping that we can get that conference back on the ground for 2021.
Yeah.
Geraldine, it's time for a shameless plug time for you. Okay.
Tell everybody your website, how they can get in touch with you, how they can contact you for your either the hybrid mother or your DNA.
Yes, absolutely. If you'd like to get a DNA reprogramming with me, I offer my sessions on BayAreaMeditation.com or GeraldineOrozco.com. And you can also join my hybrid parent group for those of you that are hybrid parents looking for support, looking to learn more about it, whether you're a man or a woman. Come to hybridmother.com and you can join me on Zoom. We do Skypes once a month, and yeah, we're only getting bigger, so please join us.
It was a pleasure to
Yes.
have you here. I can't
Thank
wait
you
to see
so
you
much.
at the conference, hopefully next year.
Yes.
Yes,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. And also, if you guys want to catch videos on some of my stuff, you guys can check out my YouTube channel, Geraldine.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I always
Geraldine
say
Orozco.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me. It's
No,
been
Yes.
thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Next week we have
Rich Daniels.
Rich Daniels. Yes.
Yes.
He's a cryptid researcher, and he has.
We had to think about that.
Well, because he confused me today. He asked me if he was on today. What was the?
Rich Daniels is a phenomenal cryptid researcher. A lot of his research focuses on Sasquatch, among others. And he is the first person to look at it from the perspective of the type of trauma that comes after the experience, not so much the encounter itself, and the long-standing trauma that can stick with someone after that who can't fit that into their reality. So,
Yes.
we
And
definitely.
he lives here in Albuquerque.
Yes, he's right here in our backyard, and we look forward to having all of you back next week. And please check out Geraldine Orozco's websites and stay in touch with her.
Yes. Keep in touch, Geraldine. It was nice seeing you, and stay safe. Okay.
Bye-bye.